Hello, my name is Erin Kramer. I'm with American Environmental Group, better known as AEG. We have worked hard and we pride ourselves to be a leader in the geosynthetics installation industry. Our number one priority has always been to strive for excellence. At AEG, we only do things the right way, which means working as safe as we possibly can every day. We want to make sure you are safe when you are on the job, so we have created this safety video to give you the basic knowledge and assistance you may need to do your job properly. At AEG, you are a part of a team, so remember that your actions affect the entire team. It is very important that you always comply with the safety rules for you and your team's safety. Please pay close attention to this video and make sure these safety procedures become a part of your everyday work routine. Do not hesitate to ask your supervisor any questions you may have after viewing this safety video. Thank you, and always know that your safety matters most.
AEGL, Professional Excellence, Dedication, and Experience.
Established in Richfield, Ohio in 2002, American Environmental Group Limited, or AEGL, is the leading geosynthetics specialty construction company in the United States. With approximately 500 employees and operations throughout the country, AEGL provides specialty environmental, construction, and maintenance services to solid and hazardous waste, environmental, energy, mining, and other industrial clients. We pride ourselves on safety, providing the highest quality service with an emphasis on meeting and exceeding the expectations of our clients. But the success of AEGL is dependent on the strength of its team. Each employee plays a vital role towards the company's success. Through a true open-door policy, employees can freely meet with any member of management to discuss concerns and questions regarding any aspect of a work situation. AEGL encourages strong and open communication within all phases of its operation. Safety is a core value in all business operations of AEGL. It is our policy to operate worldwide in a safe and responsible manner. A manner which respects the health and safety of our employees, our customers, and the communities where we work. AEGL is required by law to follow many safety practices and regulations, such as those established by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, commonly known as OSHA, and the Mine Safety and Health Administration, or MSHA. More importantly, we recognize that our employees are our greatest asset, and we intend to do all that we can to protect our workers. As such, we have established safety rules, procedures, and practices to address recognized hazards and provide the safest work environment possible. However, the only way that any safety plan can be made successful is by adhering to it. Ignoring or deviating from company safety requirements puts everyone at extreme risk and therefore cannot be tolerated. Your responsibilities in our safety program are easy to perform. As an AEGL employee, you are required to comply with all safety regulations of the job site. Recognize that you are the person most responsible for your own safety. The individual actions you take and the decisions you make will be the most important factors in ensuring your personal safety. Understand all safety instructions that you receive. If you are not sure what is expected of you, ask your supervisor before undertaking any activity. Comply with all safety regulations of the job site. Participate in your safety program and be actively involved in safety meetings, tailgate meetings, and other safety activities. Listen and ask questions about anything that is not clear to you. Look for unsafe conditions and acts before they cause an accident. Either solve the problem yourself or tell your supervisor.
And report all job injuries, illnesses, and even near misses immediately to your supervisor.
Even if you don't think it was serious or maybe a little embarrassing to admit, let your supervisor know what happened. He or she can decide on the best course of action. A safe work environment is everyone's responsibility. Failure to adhere to safety procedures and policies will subject any individual employed at AEGL to disciplinary action and could result in dismissal. If you are a new employee of AEGL, it is especially important to understand how to work safely and make these safe practices a habit in both on and off the job activities.
It's also good practice to be up to date with OSHA safety guidelines for specific job sites, such as HAZWOPER, landfills, gold mines, and power plants.
Always keep these thoughts front of mind when working at any job site. Your health could depend on it. If you know it isn't safe, don't do it. If it doesn't look safe, it probably isn't. Therefore, you must stop and reevaluate the task. Get help from your supervisor or others if necessary. The health and safety officers are responsible for the overall implementation of the health and safety program for the company, but they are not responsible for your safety. You are. Their duties include assisting field supervisors and others in implementing and managing the health and safety program. They are also responsible for reviewing safety procedures and conducting field audits to ensure that we are performing our work as safely as possible. The site superintendent is the person who is responsible for implementing site health and safety requirements in the field. Specific duties of the site superintendent include: perform and document a safety orientation for all AEGL site personnel that will serve to familiarize all personnel with the procedures, requirements, and provisions of the health and safety plan. Provide for the safety of any visitors who enter the site. Order the immediate shutdown of site activities in the case of a medical emergency, unsafe conditions, or unsafe practice. Provide and enforce the use of safety equipment, personal protective equipment, or PPE, and other items necessary for AEGL employees. Conduct job site inspections as a part of quality assurance for safety and health. And report safety and health concerns to management as necessary. While AEGL has very qualified superintendents and foremen who keep a close watch on safety with our projects, AEGL knows that to be as successful as possible, each and every worker must be looking out for safety as well. All employees of AEGL are responsible for their own safety, along with the safety of those around them. In addition, the use of any equipment must be performed in a safe and responsible manner, as directed by their supervisor. Every employee has the right and the obligation to personally stop or report any unsafe practice, work condition, or safety violation they observe. An unsafe work condition can also be caused by illness. Be vigilant in your watch for any ill effects experienced by crew members, especially those symptoms caused by heat stress or chemical exposure. Don't be afraid to approach or stop a coworker from doing something unsafe. You may actually be preventing an injury. If the employee wishes to make a report, they may do so by speaking to their immediate supervisor or to a member of higher management. The employee may also submit his or her concerns in writing, either signed or anonymously. HASPs are written documents that discuss the anticipated health and safety hazards at the project in which you are working. Their purpose is to define and communicate the company's health and safety plan that is designed to assure a safe working environment for its employees, guests, and the community at large. The function of this site-specific health and safety plan, or HASP, is to identify the health and safety hazards of each phase of site operation, identify the procedures to be implemented to ensure employee protection, identify the PPE requirements for the project, be available to any client or owner, contractor or subcontractor, or representatives who will be involved with site operations. It must also be accessible to employees, OSHA personnel, and federal, state, or local agencies with regulatory authority over the site. Clearly define all safety procedures. In the event of conflicting safety procedures or requirements, AEGL personnel must implement those safety practices which afford the highest level of protection. Describe steps to be taken in the event of a site emergency, such as an injury or fire. While the HASP is prepared to address all of the known hazards at the site, often issues come up that were not anticipated. If you come across a health or safety issue during your work at a site that was not discussed in the HASP, bring it to the attention of your supervisor. Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDS, are documents that describe the chemical and physical hazards of chemicals at our projects. Examples of hazardous chemicals are lubricants for equipment, glues or adhesives for assembling pipes, and gasoline for fueling vehicles. MSDS documents are prepared by the chemical manufacturers and are usually shipped to AEGL with the products we buy. The site supervisor must ensure that an MSDS is available at the project site for each hazardous chemical listed on the project chemical inventory. He must also make certain that the subcontractors are aware of the MSDS location and have access to this information while performing work on AEGL project sites. While MSDS come in a wide variety of formats and lengths, they all will discuss, at minimum, the following important issues related to safety when using specific chemicals: the chemical name and ingredients of the product, physical and chemical characteristics, such as, is the product lighter or heavier than air, or is it flammable? The routes of entry into the body and how the chemical can affect you. Safe handling or use of the chemical. How to prevent a fire involving the product. What to do in an emergency if the product is accidentally inhaled or contacts your skin. The MSDS for each project will be in a binder at the project site, usually with the supervisor, a designated company vehicle, or the job trailer. It is very important to know the exact location of the MSDS book, so check with your supervisor if you are not sure. Always take the time to read the MSDS for the chemicals you use or are not familiar with. Know the hazards of the chemicals on site and the steps you can take to protect yourself and others before problems occur. The MSDS is a major component of AEGL's Hazard Communication Program. Other parts include chemical inventory, proper container labeling, maintenance of the MSDS, and employee training. Most of these program subjects will be addressed on a project-specific basis. Site supervisors play a critical role in ensuring the dynamic elements of this program are implemented on each project site. The site supervisor must compile a written list of hazardous chemicals present on the project site to which employees may be exposed. This list must be kept current and in the project MSDS binder. Site supervisors also are highly involved in container labeling. They must ensure that all chemicals present on a project site are contained in the original container and have readable manufacturer labels and warnings. The labels must be displayed on the container, kept clean and legible, and written in English. In the future, changes will be occurring within hazardous communications. OSHA is in the process of aligning OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard with the globally harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, or the GHS. The GHS is a system for standardizing and harmonizing the classification and labeling of chemicals. As of June 1, 2015, all labels will be required to have pictograms, a signal word, hazard and precautionary statements, the product identifier, and supplier identification. Changes will also take place with the Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDS. They will now be provided in a uniform format, with associated information listed under specific numbers and headings. The basic goal of these changes is to ensure that employers, employees, and the public are provided with adequate, practical, reliable, and comprehensible information on the hazards of chemicals so they can take effective measures for their health and safety. We will now discuss personal protective equipment, or PPE. These are items that you must wear for protection from harm to your body. They are worn to raise your visibility on the job site, prevent objects from entering or striking your body, and lessen impact in the event of being struck. The use of PPE can save you from injury or illness and possibly save your life. But PPE can only help if you wear it. The following is the minimum PPE required on all AEGL job sites: safety glasses, goggles, or a face shield. Tinted ANSI-approved sunglasses or shields can be used during the day. However, they must be clear when working at night. This means no tint. A hard hat. For new employees, red tape must be displayed on the hard hat for identification. This identifies you as a new employee and is meant to increase attention paid to your activities. The red tape stays on your hard hat for 90 days or as your supervisor determines. High visible, reflective green vest, a high visible t-shirt, or both. Work gloves should be with you at all times and on your hands when working. Kevlar cut gloves are required when working with a razor knife. A leather-type steel-toe boot that meets recognized ANSI industrial standards. The work boots must also cover your ankles. This is a minimum level of PPE that must be worn at any AEGL project site. Other higher levels of PPE may be required depending on the task and the job site specifics. If you don't know what PPE to wear or aren't sure, check with your supervisor or the HASP. It is your responsibility to know what PPE requirements apply to your job and to wear the proper PPE for your work.
Air monitoring instruments are also used at our projects as another means of protecting our workers. While it is not common, there is the potential for airborne chemicals or similar hazards to exist at some of our project sites, depending upon the tasks being performed and the specific area. The most common air monitor we use is a 4-gas meter. This instrument measures 4 different potential hazards in the air: the level of oxygen, the amount of flammables, the level of carbon monoxide, and the level of hydrogen sulfide. Once the monitor is calibrated, it will alarm if any one of these hazards is present at an unacceptable level, and therefore warns you of the hazard before you work in the area. Air monitoring instruments are very important for your safety when used at our project sites. Be sure that you understand completely how the air monitor works and always follow the recommendations made from the monitoring results. It could very well save your life.
Any employee whose work has them outside an area that is not protected by permanent or temporary guardrails or on any other surface, such as structural steel, steps, or landings, where they are subject to fall greater than 6 feet, must be protected by a personal fall protection system. The 3 types of personal fall protection systems are personal fall arrest, positioning devices, and personal restraint systems. At times, AEGL performs work from elevated platforms where fall hazards exist. This work typically requires a personal fall arrest system for fall protection. A personal fall arrest system is used to stop an employee's fall from an elevated working level. The system consists of an anchorage, connectors, full body harness, and a lanyard with a deceleration device. Self-retracting lifelines or a vertical lifeline with a rope grab can be used in lieu of the 6-foot lanyard with a deceleration device. Anchor points used in a personal fall arrest system should be secured at or above the level of the back D-ring on the harness. This action will ensure that the free fall distance is limited. The anchor point must be a structural member capable of supporting a minimum weight of 5,000 pounds per employee. The supervisor must ensure that all personnel using a personal fall arrest system are properly trained. It is essential to the safety of everyone that every piece of fall protection equipment be inspected and maintained on a regular basis. Each personal fall protection system's component must be inspected prior to use. Check for wear, tears, mold, mildew, or distortion. Ensure that no straps are cut, torn, or scraped. Check for worn stitching. Inspect hardware for cracks, sharp edges, or burrs. Ensure that snap hooks close and lock tightly. Check for distorted hooks or faulty hook springs and that all buckles work properly. Defective equipment must be identified, tagged out, and replaced. Equipment that has been subject to impact loading must be disposed of and not used again. All employees who might be exposed to fall hazards must be trained. The training must enable each employee to recognize the hazards of falling and the practices to be used to minimize these hazards. There are many things you can do on your own to make your workday safer. By dressing and behaving in a safe, responsible manner on a daily basis, safety will become a habit. While using proper PPE can greatly reduce your chances of being injured, your general dress plays a big part as well. Never dress in worn, torn, or compromised clothing. Make sure that your clothes are of a comfortable fit, not too loose or too tight. Shirts must have sleeves that extend at least 4 inches down the arm. Keep pockets fastened when using equipment where debris or sparks may come in contact. Never wear any type of jewelry while working. Your conduct and behavior are also vital to the crew's safety. Never engage in activity that can cause unnecessary distractions to others. Horseplay of any kind will not be tolerated and is grounds for dismissal. Personal behaviors and activities must also be kept in check as well. Using headphones to listen to music or broadcasts at the work site is not allowed. The use of personal cell phones while working is also prohibited. Again, making good safety practices as part of your everyday routine will get you in the habit of being safe, and it gets others thinking about their safety preparation as well. A site-specific orientation is an OSHA requirement and must be conducted by the site superintendent prior to your initial entering of the job site. The site safety orientation must also be documented and signed by all employees attending. In most cases, the client, owner, or contractor will require all AEGL employees working on site to attend a separate site safety orientation. The briefing is usually conducted by the site safety officer. During the initial AEGL pre-job site-specific training session, employees will be instructed on the following topics: content and implementation of the HASP, site hazards and controls, intended use of the personal protective equipment, and emergency information, including local emergency response team phone numbers, route to the nearest hospital, evacuation, and emergency response procedures. A dry run to the hospital would be good practice in case of a medical emergency. It is your responsibility to be aware of all potential hazards and related safety regulations when working on a new job site. Remember, someone who doesn't work as required, meaning the safest way possible, puts everyone on the workforce at risk. Always think about the person next to you. Toolbox meetings are brief gatherings of crew members along with their supervisor. They are also known as the JSA or Job Safety Analysis Meeting. These meetings are held early in the morning before the crew begins their workday. This is done prior to any work so that crew members can be reminded of hazards inherent to the work at hand and take precautions for avoiding them. Toolbox meetings are used mainly to inform employees of worksite hazards, assist with safe procedure reviews, and help develop employee awareness. Hazard awareness is a major factor in injury prevention. Often, exercise with stretching is conducted to get muscles and mind warmed up for the work ahead. The following are the steps found in the worksheets used in the JSA safety meetings. On the front page, or Step 1, your foreman or supervisor will identify all the items that pertain to your work activity that day. These items will be reviewed with the crew. On the back page, in Step 2, all the work activities planned for that day will be listed. These are short descriptions of what types of work you will be performing.
Examples would be deploying liner with a winch or welding liner material.
Next, the amount of risk involved is identified in each task that is listed. Examples of risk for welding liner include, but are not limited to,
Tripping over cable from winch.
cutting hand while holding cable, wind picks up liner material, hand injuries from knives while trimming liner, and burns. The last step is reviewing and enacting preventive measures to eliminate the risk of injury or reduce it.
For example, preventive measures for deploying liner with a winch include:
Never walk over the cable once it is attached to the liner,
do not touch cable once winching has started. It may break.
and never walk on the liner while it is being deployed. Another example of preventive measures would be to reduce the hazards of cutting yourself while trimming liner. Kevlar gloves must be worn while cutting. A retractable knife is the only type permitted on AEGL job sites. And to reduce the risk of burns while welding, never touch the elements of the welding machine or any heated or melted plastic. Once all the hazards have been identified and preventive measures have been set, the final step is to sign the form. Take these meetings seriously by listening, asking questions, contributing your know-how for the less experienced coworkers, and following the advice discussed in the meeting. JSA checklist safety cards are mini safety meetings that you will conduct at breaks. This card is to be filled out by you each morning. Then, during your break times, you are to review the card and sign it in the appropriate area. These cards need to be reviewed at least 3 times per day. This tool helps keep hazard awareness at the top of your mind. Hazard awareness has been shown to reduce more accidents than any other single program. Many physical hazards can be present during the use of hand and power tools. These hazards may include cuts, burns, punctures, and dangers to the eye and hearing. The most common hand or power tools used in the geosynthetic installation field include razor knives, wrenches, hammers, screwdrivers, hand clamps, propane torches, air test needle, hand grinders, and hot air guns. The greatest amount of injuries associated with hand tools arise from improper maintenance, misuse, and lack of proper PPE. The 3 essential elements of hand tool safety are tool selection, safe work practices, and maintenance. The following safe work practices must be used when using hand and power tools. Retractable razor knife. Use proper PPE, such as Kevlar gloves and eye protection at all times when using a retractable razor knife. Always use the proper cutting technique, which is to be cutting away from your body parts whenever possible. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't cut over or around a finished liner as you may damage the liner. Never carry your retractable knife in your pocket. Use a pouch or case to prevent punctures to your body parts. Change your blades frequently. Never wait until it is dull. Always use the correct blade for the material that you are cutting. As a point of note, pocket knives are not allowed at an AEGL worksite. Know what is going on around you at all times. Watch out for coworkers and keep a safe zone around you when cutting. And again, always remember that you should never use a retractable razor knife without wearing Kevlar cut gloves. Wrenches. Be sure to select the right wrench for the job. Inspect the wrench for worn jaws. Wear gloves to prevent cut and scrapes in the event of slippage. Never use a bar or cheater pipe to extend the wrench handles. Hammers. Keep a safety zone clear of coworkers when swinging a hammer. Always use eye protection. Inspect wooden handles to be sure that they are not loose or splintered. Always wear steel-toe boots. Keep your body parts out of the direct pathway when using the hammer. Screwdrivers. Select the proper screwdriver for the job. Never use a worn screwdriver. Check for rounded or nicked edges. Always wear gloves to prevent cut and scrapes from the tool slipping. Just like the razor knife, don't carry screwdrivers in a pocket. Doing so can lead to punctures to the body. Hand clamps. Always inspect hand clamps before using and make sure all proper parts of the clamp are working. Tighten the clamp onto the material to prevent slippage. Never tie a clamp to your hand or wrist. Always be sure to use gloves that ensure a proper grip. When pulling material with the clamp, situate one foot forward and the other behind you. This will prevent you from falling backwards should the clamp slip off the material. Never position your feet together and pull with all your body weight. You could be seriously injured should the clamp slide. Put air under the material by waving it up and down. This will make the liner float and move much easier. Do not carry in your back pockets or anywhere on your person. They can cause injury in the event of a fall. Use your legs and arms, not your back, to pull the material. If you do feel yourself falling, try to roll through it. The act of catching yourself could result in a more severe injury than the fall itself. Let's take a look at a crew using clamps and moving liner material properly, which means working safely. Propane torches. Always inspect the torch prior to use. When heating up the liner for testing, wear gloves that are heat resistant, as well as other required PPE, such as safety glasses. Rubber, leather, and plastic gloves absorb heat, and wearing them could result in burns to your hands. Never use around flammable gases or liquids. Air test needles. Never carry air test needles in your pockets or bare hands. This will prevent punctures to your body parts. Keep your hands and other body parts out of the pathway when inserting the needle into the air channel. Handheld grinders. Always use proper eye protection, such as safety glasses and a face shield. Make sure that the clothes you are wearing fit properly and are not too loose. Excessively loose clothing could get caught in the rotating disc of the grinder. Never wear jewelry of any kind. Check the power cord and plug for damage. Make sure that the grinding disc is in proper condition, mounted properly, and tightened down. Always use the grinder with its guard on. Never remove or alter the guard in any way. Always use hearing protection. To prevent accidental startup, employees should be continually aware of not holding the start button while carrying a tool that is plugged in. Establish a buffer zone from coworkers. Leister, or hot air gun. Inspect the Leister for any visible signs of damage. Be sure to check the cord and plug for any cuts and fraying. Avoid any use around flammable gases and liquids. If you must use this tool in areas with flammable gas nearby, use high-volume fans, such as torpedo fans, to disperse gas while operating. Avoid touching the neck of the hot air gun to prevent burns. Always wear required PPE, such as hand and eyewear. Have a fire extinguisher nearby in case of a fire before you operate the equipment. Turn the air gun down to the cool setting when not in use to prevent burning of the liner or other coworkers. Cool the air gun off before unplugging it to prevent burning out the element from the extended heat. Physical hazards may be present during the use of an attached hydraulic winch on a bobcat. The following safety practices must always be used when working with a hydraulic winch. Inspect the equipment and winch prior to use, along with the cable and rigging. The cables should not be frayed, and the winch should not have oil leaks. Inspect all clamps and, if present, the hook at the end of the cable. Establish a safe zone for workers in the event of a cable malfunction. Never walk over the cable or touch it once it is secured to the material. Make sure the device or pipe that you are using to pull the roll of material is strong enough for the load and the straps are inspected. When setting overlap with the cable and winch, stop the winch and reposition the roll of material for the correct overlap. Do not allow your personnel within the safe zone when winching material and setting overlap. The use of a fire extinguisher in the hands of a trained adult can be a life and property-saving tool. However, improper use can compound the problem, increasing risk of injury. Utilizing a fire extinguisher requires training on its proper use and maintenance. Fire extinguishers are divided into 4 categories based on the different types of fires that typically occur. All AEGL fire extinguishers should have an ABC rating on them and be inspected monthly. Employees can expect to find fire extinguishers in company trucks, company mobile equipment, work and office trailers, fuel containment areas, around portable generators, and near any flammable hazards. Each fire extinguisher has a numerical rating that serves as a guide for the amount of fire the extinguishers can handle. The higher the number, the more firefighting power. The numerical rating indicates the approximate square feet of fire it can extinguish. Use the PASS acronym to help remember how to operate the fire extinguisher. Pull. Pull the pin at the top of the extinguisher. Aim. Aim at the base of the fire, not the flames. You must extinguish the fuel. Squeeze. Squeeze the lever slowly. If the handle is released, the discharge will stop. Sweep. Use a sweeping motion, side to side, until the fire is completely out. Operate the extinguisher from a safe distance and then move towards the fire once it starts to diminish. Physical hazards include those that can cause exterior injuries, such as cuts and burns, and those that can cause interior damage, such as hearing loss, heat stress, and other illnesses. Due to the nature of our work, physical hazards exist at every AEGL job site and include the potential for being struck by heavy equipment, spreader bar, or GCL bars, caught in collapsed anchor trenches, exposure to excessive noise from operating equipment, and heat or cold stress from working outside, electrocution due to contact with overhead power lines, slips, trips, and falls from walking on uneven ground or liner, cuts and abrasions from razor knives, hand tools, and other sharp equipment, and exposure to adverse weather conditions such as high winds, lightning, snow, and ice storms. Remember, the key to avoiding these hazards is preparation. This means always being aware of your surroundings and acting in the safest manner possible. Some of the most common accidents at our projects are slips, trips, and falls. While these types of accidents don't appear significant, they account for approximately 20% of all disabling on-the-job injuries. Fortunately, they are easy to prevent if you stay alert. Always have an awareness of where you're walking, especially around mud, wet landfill liners, and other slippery surfaces. Avoid going near or having to walk through slippery surfaces if possible. Wear the proper shoes. Wear shoes that have a deep tread and provide good traction and are appropriate for the work environment. When walking on slippery surfaces, shorten your steps as you would on ice. Beware of slip hazards on the geosynthetic material, such as dust, dirt, rocks, wet and icy surfaces, and loose or cut sections of geosynthetic material in the work area. Watch for trip hazards on the geosynthetic material. This includes overlap, power cords, and uneven surfaces or terrain within the work area. Good housekeeping will help minimize these potential hazards. Keep your work area free of any waste materials. Other hazards found in a neglected work site are unattended electrical cords and pieces of liner cuttings. These situations are a safety problem waiting to happen. Don't let anyone have a slip, trip, or fall because of not cleaning up after yourself. The best practice is to pick up as you work. Keep your work trailer clean and free of clutter, especially the main walkways. Never carry equipment into a trench. Set the equipment down first, enter the trench, and then retrieve the equipment. Communicate hazards to on-site personnel. Establish and utilize a pathway which is most free of slip and trip hazards. Establish a walkway over the anchor trenches to prevent the workers from falling in or jumping the trench. And be alert and correct or report potential tripping hazards promptly. Slips, trips, hits, and falls don't have to occur if you follow these safety rules. Take the time to watch where you are going and avoid these hazards. Lifting anything can pose a hazard to your back. Just how serious the risk is depends on your personal strengths and weaknesses, the weight of the load, the shape or awkwardness of the load, and other factors. Before you lift anything, be sure it's not too heavy for you. If it is, get help or use a mechanical lifting device. Next, survey your intended route for hazards. Now you're ready to lift. When lifting objects, use the following proper lifting technique. Know the path of where the load is being moved. Move any hazards from the path. Stand close to the load. Center your body on firm footing. Keep your feet shoulder-width apart to get the best footing possible. Bend at the knees, not at the waist. Keep both feet flat and knees flexed slightly. Tighten stomach muscles to offset the force of the load. Grasp the object at opposite corners. Lift with your legs instead of your back muscles. Keep your back upright and avoid twisting. Remember that pushing a load typically puts less stress on your back than pulling it. And most importantly, think before lifting. If the object is too heavy, get help. Driving a company vehicle may be the most dangerous activity any AEGL worker can perform. Across the United States, more workers die from accidents while driving company vehicles than die from falls, electrocutions, and all other occupational sources combined. AEGL recognizes this serious work hazard and wants you to be the safest driver you can be, both on and off the job. To operate any AEGL vehicle, You must have a valid driver's license, and you are only permitted to operate vehicles for which you have the proper class identified on your license. You will then receive on-the-job instruction on the vehicle you will be operating. Be sure you understand how to perform an outside inspection of the vehicle, parking procedures, and other rules. Finally, you must adhere to defensive driving principles for all vehicle operations. The three elements of defensive driving are hazard recognition, setting up a defense, and acting in a timely manner. We'll discuss each one of these now. Hazard recognition. Recognize potentially hazardous driving situations by scanning the road ahead, looking left and right, then left again at intersections, and checking rearview mirrors. Defensive actions. As potential hazards are recognized, consider the possible defensive actions of braking, steering around, and sounding the horns, headlights, or other forms of communication. And timely action. Act to avoid, recognize potential hazards by adjusting your speed to account for driving conditions, changing lanes, or taking alternate routes. Here are some of the universal safety rules that apply during vehicle operation. You must follow these rules at all times when driving company vehicles. Always inspect the vehicle you are operating prior to use. Look for any possible fluid leaks. Visually inspect the tires to be sure they are properly inflated. Notice the condition of the windshield and report any chips or cracks to your supervisor. Once inside the cab, take a look at the fuel gauge to be sure that you have enough gas for the job. Also, be sure to fill the tank if it's less than half full before returning the vehicle. Don't put your coworker in a bad situation by returning a vehicle with no fuel. Make sure you keep the cab and interior of the vehicle clean and organized. Remember that you are part of a team, and we all need to do our part. Don't leave a mess for someone else to clean. Seatbelts must be worn at all times by all passengers. There is probably no other safety device ever invented that has saved as many lives as the automobile seatbelt. Use it. Obey all posted speed limit and traffic signs, particularly when on a project site. These signs provide information to help protect you and must be followed at all times. Always use the parking brake when stopping for extended periods, parking, or exiting the vehicle. If you are a passenger, never ride outside the cab or passenger area of a vehicle, such as on the tailgate or in the truck bed. For one, you can't wear a seatbelt in these areas. And two, if the vehicle has to make a sudden stop, you may be tossed off the vehicle and seriously injured. If you are the driver, never allow anyone to ride in anything other than a seat equipped with a seat belt. There is to be no cell phone use of any type, even with a hands-free device. This includes talking and making calls. And absolutely no texting can occur while driving a company vehicle. While it is imperative that we follow all safety guidelines when operating a vehicle, it is just as important that we understand the importance of safety outside of the vehicle. As part of the job site workforce, we must always be aware of our surroundings, and that includes movement of heavy equipment and construction traffic. Never approach a moving vehicle unless contact has been made and proper signaling has been exchanged. Always maintain a safe distance, a minimum of 30 feet from any vehicle or piece of equipment that is in motion. And be aware of the potential for the vehicle or equipment to move. This is especially true in situations of high noise levels or when ear protection is used. In these instances, you now have only your sight to rely on for any impending dangers. Therefore, always position yourself while working so that you can see the potential pathways of construction equipment. Remember, whether you're in the cab or outside of the cab, your responsibility to safety is equally important. When projects require the need to move heavy material or access areas that we couldn't otherwise reach, AEGL uses forklifts and man lifts. Both pieces of equipment, however, can be very dangerous and even deadly if not operated properly. Never operate a forklift or man lift without the proper authorized training, which involves classroom learning, and a hands-on demonstration where you are to show your ability to safely operate the equipment. Let's talk about some of the hazards associated with each piece of equipment. Forklifts, sometimes referred to as powered industrial trucks, are mobile, powered trucks used to carry, push, pull, lift, or stack material. Remember, they are not an automobile and cannot be operated by just anyone. You must be properly trained on the forklift before using it. Forklifts and aerial lifts may only be operated by employees who have received certified training on fork and aerial lifts. All training certificates must be on the operator at all times. All equipment operators are responsible for the safe operation of heavy equipment under their control. Operators are responsible for inspecting their equipment to ensure safe performance. Mandatory, documented pre-shift inspection must be done by the equipment operator on each piece of equipment he operates. All heavy equipment on the job site is required to have a working backup alarm. If it is not working, do not operate the equipment. All equipment operators are required to wear seat belts during operation. Do not lift loads over other personnel, vehicles, or other heavy equipment. Always use a spotter in limited areas and when backing up. Remove your hands from the controls when people approach your equipment. The act of accidentally hitting or moving a control has injured and even killed workers. Inspect all rigging, such as shackles, bridles, slings, straps, and chains for wear, bending, or weakness before any usage. Always know the chart capacity of what your equipment can lift. Make sure you have a lift plan in place before lifting any load. Equipment should never be operated closer than 10 feet from power lines. For higher voltage power lines, a larger clearance is required. Operators must comply with the state-specific requirements where the job site is located. For example, in Arizona, water truck operators need to go to a dust control compliance training, and all contractors need to purchase a dust control permit yearly. Man lifts are used to lift people to work in elevated areas. As with forklifts, they have specific requirements and hazards. Man lifts, like forklifts, cannot be operated without proper documented training. Working around heavy equipment can be dangerous because of the power and size of the equipment, the limited field of vision, and the noise levels that can be produced by the equipment. Heavy equipment at a worksite may include a variety of forklifts, wheel loaders, bobcats, water trucks, aerial lifts, and track excavators. To ensure the safety of all personnel in the work areas, the following safety procedures regarding heavy equipment must be reviewed prior to and followed during work activities. No riding on vehicles or equipment on anything other than fixed seats will take place. This includes the truck beds, buckets, or forks on heavy equipment. Ensure that the equipment operators are trained or experienced in the operation of the site-specific equipment. Personnel should never approach a piece of heavy equipment or enter the exclusion zone without the operator's acknowledgement, meaning, at minimum, making eye contact with the operator or the stoppage of work or yielding to the employee. The exclusion zone is a vicinity of approximately 30 feet around the piece of equipment in use. Always maintain visual contact with the operator when in the close proximity to the heavy equipment. Never walk under a load of a bucket, spreader bar, or forks. Walk between the fork boom and main cab of the power industrial forklift, or stand beside an open truck bed. Do not touch any of the straps or chains used for the rigging of the spreader bar once it is under load. Never approach equipment from the rear, and never walk behind heavy equipment. Wear hearing protection while on or around heavy equipment when normal conversation cannot be heard above work operations. One form of communication that is extremely important to know and understand is hand signals. Hand signals are used for communicating to other workers, such as between an equipment operator and a signalman, sometimes called a ground man. Before we get into the specific hand signals that are used, there are some ground rules that you must know regarding hand signals and working around operating equipment. One signal man. There should only be one signaler for each piece of equipment or equipment operator. More than one signal man can lead to confusion and potentially a serious accident. Signal slowly and deliberately. The signalman should clearly indicate the hand signals to the equipment operator and should not quickly change or revise the signals unless absolutely necessary. A wrong motion or action to the equipment operator is extremely dangerous and could cause an accident. Obey the signals. The equipment operator and all others in the area must obey the signalman unless doing so would cause an accident. Ensure a clear view. The signalman must be in clear view of the operator and of the workers in the area. The signalman should always remove any gloves that are being worn so that his signals can be more easily seen. It is important for you to recognize our hand signals so you will be able to know what the signalman is indicating. You will not be asked to be a signal person until you have been properly trained. Here are some of the common hand signals we use on our projects. Raise the boom, thumb pointing up. Lower the boom, thumb pointing down. Move slowly, pointed finger of one hand circling under other hand. Lower load, finger pointing down and circling. Hoist load, finger pointing up and circling. Stop, one arm extended and circling. Emergency stop, both arms extended and circling. No employee will be permitted to work on any part of an electrical power circuit unless the person is protected against electric shock. This must be done by de-energizing the circuit and grounding it, or by determining that the circuit has been locked and tagged out. The regulation for electrical circuits and wiring are as follows. All electrical circuits must be grounded according to NEC and NESC code. Ground fault circuit interrupters must be used in absence of properly grounded circuitry or when portable tools must be used around wet areas. All electrical wiring and equipment must be intrinsically safe for the use in potentially explosive environments and atmosphere. What intrinsically safe means in this case is that the wiring or piece of equipment won't ignite flammable gases. All electrical wiring and equipment must be type listed by Underwriters Laboratories or Factory Mutual for the specific applications. All installations must comply with the National Electric Code and the National Electric Safety Code. And all live wiring or equipment must be guarded to protect all persons or objects from harm. Electrical and extension cords are a very useful tool on any job site. However, when not used safely, they have the potential to cause serious injury. The following guidelines must be followed to make the use of extension cords as safe as possible. Inspect extension cords and hand tool cords for signs of wear every time you use them. If the outer insulation has a hole or cut in it, do not use it. Remember, never use damaged extension cords and always replace them with an undamaged cord. When you discover a damaged extension cord, you must attach a tag to the cord stating "out of service." This way, no other employee will use the cord and get hurt. Keep cords away from water and hot objects like the muffler of a generator. Avoid placing electrical cords across traffic areas. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, are required on all extension cords and equipment. GFCIs are usually found built into the generator. If a GFCI is not present on the generator, an external GFCI must be used. Always use heavy-duty 3-prong extension cords for tools with 3-prong plugs. Never remove or bend back the third prong. Make sure your tools are turned off before connecting them to an extension cord. When disconnecting the cord, pull the plug rather than the cord itself. Unplug and put away extension cords that are not being used. Cords are removed from service if the outer insulation has been damaged to the point that the interior wires are visible. To remove a cord from service, attach a tag that states, "Out of service, do not use." At many job sites, generators are the only source of power that we may have to operate our tools. This may require them to run during the entire workday. Because of this, the generators may need to be refueled many times over through the course of a day. While we may be anxious to keep the workflow moving, we can't lose sight of the fact that refueling a generator must be done deliberately and cautiously. Remember, we're working with gasoline, which is a highly flammable and combustible liquid. Rushing to refuel may result in serious injury. Always follow the guidelines when working with generators and fuel. Never fill a generator while it is running. Turn the generator off and allow it to cool for 5 minutes. As it cools, take the time to inspect the generator for any damage, leaks, or spills. Be sure that you are wearing the proper PPE, such as eye protection and gloves. Take your time when adding fuel. Be careful not to spill any fuel on the ground or on the generator itself. If the fuel is spilled, clean the generator or area properly. If the ground is saturated with fuel, the generator should be moved from the area before restarting. Never fill a generator on the liner. Should any spills occur, the fuel can damage the liner. Have the proper fire extinguisher on hand, meaning within 25 feet, in the event that a spark ignites a fire when restarting. Alert any co-workers that may be in the area to keep a safe distance from the generator upon restart. Another essential component to the generator is the GFCI, or Ground Fault Circuit Interrupter. All generators on construction sites must have GFCIs on the 110 outlets. Most generators manufactured today have these built in. However, generators that don't have this feature require that an external GFCI be used. An external GFCI plugs into the generator, and then the power tool is plugged into the GFCI. Lifting rolls of liner, lifting pipe, lifting generators, and other portable heavy tools are all activities that require rigging. At most AEGL job sites, rigging and lifting is an everyday occurrence. The term rigging refers to anything that is used to move heavy objects, such as straps, cables, and other related equipment. And with the moving of heavy objects comes the risk for injury. To maintain the highest level of safety whenever heavy lifting is required, precautions are necessary to prevent harm to personnel, equipment, materials, or the environment. Only properly trained and authorized AEGL employees are allowed to use rigging equipment to unload and move materials. Operators must ensure lifting equipment is properly inspected, tested, utilized, and maintained. Working loads on rigging must not exceed the safe limits established by the manufacturer. All field operations must maintain and adhere to a well-planned program of inspections to be certain that all equipment being used is within the required tolerance. An initial inspection must be performed at the time the equipment arrives on the project site. New synthetic slings, chokers, wire rope slings or bridles, and chains for use on the project do not require a proof test, but they must be tagged. The tag must contain information on the size, length, and rated vertical capacity of the slings or chains. All manufacturer shackles and hooks must have visible size and tonnage stamped on them. Employees using rigging equipment are responsible for inspecting their equipment prior to and during use.
Only competent persons should perform the inspections. A competent person is defined by OSHA as one who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them.
The inspections must be documented on the proper inspection sheets that are available in the AEGL Health and Safety Plan under Rigging and Hoisting. All records must be kept in the folder or binder in case of an audit by the company safety director or OSHA. The following items are to be checked during inspection. Please refer to your rigging and hoisting plan for hazards to look for on each item and proper storage. Any equipment found to be defective is to be immediately tagged out, removed from service, and destroyed. Wire rope slings, chain slings, synthetic slings, end fittings, shackles, hooks. While inspections may seem like a tedious chore, it is an essential part of our safety plan. Taking just a few minutes to be certain that your gear is in proper working order can save you and your coworkers from serious injury. Due to the unique work that is performed by AEGL and the size and weight of the materials that are used, there is the potential for certain hazards that are considered exceptional to rigging situations. However, while these hazards are rare, it is important to understand them and always be aware of them. This is extremely important, not only when working with rigging, but when working around rigging as well. Situational awareness and recognizing the potential for danger are two of the main components of a personal safety program. Understand that there is risk involved with each work activity and that you should always be keeping a close eye on what's going on around you. The simple act of being aware and alert to possible dangers can mean the difference between life and death. Extrusion welding is an important phase in the connecting of liner sections. Extrusion welding allows the application of large welds in a single weld pass. It is the preferred technique for joining liner material. The welding rod is drawn into a miniature handheld plastic extruder, plasticized or melted, and forced out of the extruder against the parts being joined, which are softened from a jet of hot air to allow bonding to take place. Extrusion welding is an essential component to the operation, and extreme care and caution must be used when this form of welding is taking place. Before any welding takes place, a thorough inspection of the equipment must be made. Visually examine all parts of the equipment before starting. Perform a temperature check to be sure the welder is operating properly. As with all tools of the trade, proper PPE should always be worn. On startup, always make sure that the welder is pointing away from the body. Should any malfunction occur, there is potential for molten plastic to shoot from the machine. By pointing it away from your body, you are keeping yourself out of harm's way. Keep the welding rod from getting tangled. Always be sure that there is enough welding rod available, but don't pull in excess. Avoid pulling the rod through any puddles or mud. In many circumstances, the environment itself can put you and your crew at risk. These hazards can come in different forms, each one having its own element of danger. Some environmentally related threats can affect you directly, such as wind and lightning. Others can take on a more subtle approach, such as exposure to extreme temperatures. Any of these circumstances could not only put you at risk for injury, but can jeopardize your health as well. Therefore, it is imperative that you recognize and understand the potential for danger while in the environment, both directly and indirectly. Wind can put you at risk in a variety of ways. The wind itself can carry particles of dust and sand that can get into your eyes, ears, nose, and throat. Exposure to wind can also cause damage to your skin, a condition known as windburn. The force of the wind also impacts your work. When working with large, flexible materials, such as a liner, wind can become especially dangerous. The liner can react just like a sail on a boat by capturing the force of the wind. As you can imagine, this could have devastating results. Depending on the strength of the wind, the liner can be actually ripped from your hands. It is imperative that you understand the proper way to react in windy conditions. Be aware of the situation. Notice how the wind is traveling and work from an angle that has the least resistance. Visualize how the wind will affect the work at hand. Drop the liner when necessary. If you feel the liner being picked up by the wind, don't fight it, just let go. The force is too great to manage. Many injuries have been sustained by trying to maneuver the liner in windy conditions. Lower the boom, literally. When working with deployment equipment, lower the boom if wind gusts begin to lift the liner. Stay upwind from the liner. Think about it. You don't want to be in the direction of the liner should the wind begin to carry it. Keep wind direction in mind when positioning yourself. Sandbag it. Use sandbags to hold the liner in place until weather conditions stabilize. And always know your next move. Anticipate what will happen if the wind catches the liner. Then decide what the safest course of action would be. Rain, dew, or any form of wetness can cause many job site hazards. Limited vision, slippery conditions, and risk of electrical shock are just a few of the challenges that dampness creates. When working in inclement weather, sound judgment must be used to stay safe. Recognize the signs. Be aware of bad weather indicators, such as quick changes in humidity, dark clouds, and gusty winds. Thunder is a sure sign that trouble is brewing. The earlier that you can take precautions, the better. Throw the switch. Never use electrical equipment of any kind in rainy or damp conditions. Power down any and all electrical equipment that is in operation. Any electrical cords should be unplugged and gathered. Remember, a frayed cord in use during wet conditions could result in electrocution. Any cord that appears to be damaged should be removed from the work area and marked for inspection. Keep your footing. The potential for slips and falls are extremely high in wet or rain conditions when working around liners. Take slow and deliberate steps and avoid walking on any sloped terrain. Maintaining sure footing in a rain situation is another reason to only wear work boots that have the proper amount of tread. Lightning strikes. If lightning is observed or heard in the area, the work must stop immediately and the crew must regroup under shelter. Designated safe areas will be determined and identified in the tailgate meeting. If you have any questions about where to report in the event of an electrical storm, ask your supervisor. Or even better, voice your concerns during the tailgate meeting. Someone may have the same question, and speaking up may keep someone else from injury. Whether it's the howl of the wind or the roar of a generator, noise can be present at most any work site. And noise of any kind can be a detriment to a safe environment. Loud and sudden noises can become a hazardous distraction to your work at hand or put you in immediate danger by making you lose concentration. Ongoing, continuous noise can prevent clear communication or hide the alert of an impending danger. And extreme noise can cause damage to your hearing. However, there are ways that you can protect yourself and others when working in loud conditions.
The procedure for the proper insertion of earplugs is as follows. With clean hands, firmly roll the entire earplug between your thumb and fingers to form a thin, tight cylinder. Using one hand, gently lift the top of your ear up to open the ear canal. With your other hand, insert the rounded end of the earplug. With your forefinger, hold the earplug in place until it expands to form a comfortable, snug fit. Earplugs must be inserted properly for the best performance. The inserting of earplugs may seem to be difficult the first time you try, so be sure to practice as much as needed. And Be sure to discard any earplugs after several uses or as soon as dirt or wax accumulates on them.
Always wear ear protection when working around noisy equipment such as generators, lysters, grinders, and heavy equipment. Don't be the only one using ear protection. Chances are, if you need to use hearing protection, so does everyone around you. Alert those nearby if they are not wearing the proper PPE. Understand the logistics of sound. If you can move away from the source of loud noise, do so. Or move the source of the noise. Pulling a generator just a few feet away can make sound levels drop significantly. As a general rule, if you have to raise your voice to talk to someone standing beside you, then the area is too loud. You should move away from the noise or wear hearing protection. Recognize the sounds. If a piece of equipment is making a high-pitched sound or squeal, it probably needs service. Listen to how your equipment is working and take any piece of gear that does not sound like it is running properly out of service. As we know, the environment can cause hazards to us directly, as in conditions of high winds or lightning. But the environment can also take its toll on you in ways that aren't so obvious, such as the effects of extreme heat and cold on your body. And while these hazards may not affect you immediately, such as getting struck by lightning, these threats are just as dangerous and deadly. Anticipation and preparation are the key components to safeguarding yourself from these dangerous health conditions. Avoid temperature-related stress to your body by wearing proper clothing at all times. Staying hydrated by drinking ample amounts of water, even when you're not feeling thirsty, is a very effective precautionary measure. Also, be sure to know the symptoms of the following conditions and alert your supervisor if you are experiencing any unusual pain or discomfort. Each worker is responsible for monitoring themselves and their reaction to the heat. After all, you know best whether you're having difficulty working in higher temperatures. Immediately let someone know if you believe you are having difficulty with working in high heat environments. Do not be afraid to let a coworker or your supervisor know you are having problems. As an employee of AEGL, we also ask that you look after your fellow team members. If you notice any of the symptoms of heat stress, move the employee to a cooler environment and notify the supervisor. The site supervisor must also periodically monitor employees working in hot and humid environments for physical signs of heat stress. Any employee exhibiting one or more of the following conditions must be made immediately to stop work, rest in a cool place, and drink plenty of water. These conditions are painful muscle spasms or cramps, dizziness, nausea or headache, pale, flushed complexion with moist, clammy skin, elevated body temperature, and fainting. If fainting occurs, call for medical help and notify your supervisor right away. The most serious health problem associated with heat stress is heat stroke. Heat stroke occurs when the body's ability to regulate its internal temperature fails. The skin is hot, usually dry and red or spotted. A person's